Since I saw the plan back in 1971 and 72 when I was on the intelligence briefing team for CINCPAC Fleet to bring about one world totalitarian socialist government, and when I saw that the United States was behind the whole thing to create world government over the ashes of all sovereign nations and existing religions around this world. This is not coming from without. The United States created the United Nations. The United States created the European Union.
The EEC was created by the Central Intelligence Agency, working through a lodge in Italy called the P2 Lodge. Propaganda 2 is the name of it, which is the intelligence arm of the Vatican, and Prince Bernhard, who is the leader of the World Council that controls these secret societies around the world, called the Bilderberg Group. They are destroying it. They are subverting it. Our Constitution has not been allowed to work since 1945 and maybe even earlier. And they have been working behind the scenes to bring about a one-world totalitarian socialist government with the Communist Manifesto as its platform, through the United Nations, which was created by this nation from an older organization called the League of Nations, which was the original foundation. And at the highest levels of our government, the Constitution's already been scrapped, and they are working under the aegis of the UN Participation Act and the United Nations Charter.
Which says what?
Which says that there are no rights, there are only privileges. And privileges can be granted or taken away at will by the state.
Quite frightening scenario.
It's a very frightening scenario, and people better wake up to the fact that unless they wake up and do something about it now, there's only going to be one alternative. And that's either take up arms, restore the Constitution, and the blood will run in the streets of America, or reach down and put the shackles around your own feet and march off into slavery peacefully.
Well, it shocked the hell out of me, but they thought I was one of them. It was an accident that I got in there. I'd been a member of the Demolay Society when I was 13 years old, only attended 3 meetings, and then my father was transferred to Japan. I never saw another lodge and never went to another meeting, and that was the end of that. When I filled out all my documentation for my top-secret QSI security clearance, which was required to be able to work in the command center and on the briefing team at CINCPAC Fleet, I didn't see Demolay on there, so I checked Freemason. And when I checked Freemason, that's what opened all the doors and got me the security clearance and put me in those positions to be able to see what I saw, and I think the hand of God was working when that happened so that I would be able to warn His people of what was coming. And I've been doing that ever since. I didn't see absolutely everything, but I saw enough to give me an edge and a vast head start on anybody that's ever lived before in the public sector that's not normally privy to this. And I spent the last, well, ever since, researching to find out what it all meant and where we're going. They know that there's a hardcore group of American men and women who are devout, religious, moral people who love freedom and are dedicated to the concept of liberty and freedom and will fight to protect and defend constitutional Republican government against anything that comes along. And when that begins, it's going to be a terrible, terrible thing. I've spent most of my adult life trying to warn people and wake up enough people so that this did not have to happen, because I know it's going to be terrible. Since 1988, when I began telling the world, not just the American people, but the world, about Majesty 12, which is the plan to enslave the human race in a world totalitarian socialist government, the merger of the military of the United States and what used to be known as the old Soviet Union under NATO, which is occurring now. People don't understand that NATO is an arm of the United Nations. It was formed under the auspices of the United Nations Charter and takes its orders from the Security Council. Warsaw Pact was also formed under the auspices of the United Nations Charter and was an arm of the United Nations and took its orders also from the Security Council. The Cold War was a total farce, and that's why we never had any military conflicts with the Soviet Union.
George Bush said it very clearly, but nobody was listening when he said, "No longer will any nation stand against a world united." And with that action, he established the legal foundation in international law that the United Nations is now legally the one world government.